Hey guys, so in this video we'll be talking about two new really powerful GPUs from Nvidia and also from Apple. And also we'll be just doing a quick retrospect on the launches. We've seen launches from Intel, from AMD, from Nvidia, and now from Apple. The Nvidia launch has now reached the second month, and we're now beginning to see an increase in supply for the 5080, but when it comes to the 5090, these are still very short in supply. You can find some of them occasionally on Amazon. Newegg is another place you can find them. One thing I've noticed in the United States is that the prices have now gone up to reflect the tariffs, and this can lead to some pretty interesting situations. For instance, with the Walmart edition of the MSI Supreme 5090, when it's in stock, you can see it as $39.99, and that's the price presumably with the tariffs from China. And when not in stock, the price is still the MSRP. Now there's another set of tariffs coming through in April, and those are going to be the reciprocal tariffs. We spoke about those in a previous video, and those will be coming in covering not just China, but any country that the United States feels that it still has to tackle. So still got an opportunity, if you're in the United States, to purchase some of these items before prices go up, because a lot of the countries that have a trade surplus with the United States are exporting electronic goods like GPUs and computing parts to the United States. If you still haven't got your RTX 50 generation or even your AMD 90 series card, you can find fairly decent amounts on Newegg. They seem to have these combo deals where they'll bundle one of the cards with another item, and if you find the combo deal that's just right for you, these can be pretty good value. I haven't seen this kind of shortage in supply since the 30 series back in 2021. Now onto the product launches. There is a new Nvidia RTX card which is rumored, and if it does come through probably later this month, that's what the speculation is, it should be the replacement for the RTX 6000 Ada generation. It is rumored to have 96 gigabytes of RAM or VRAM, and it is also rumored to require an enormous increase in amount of power that it draws. So if we take a look at the specs for the RTX 6000 Ada generation, this is one of the ones that it's used for basically work. So things like generative AI, 3D modeling, AI training and inference. Nvidia Omniverse, which is a platform that Nvidia has developed for people who need to create virtual realms, video content and streaming, and data simulation and visualization, basically scientific work, engineering work. Now this one is extremely powerful, and it comes in much more powerful than the previous generation, which was known as the RTX A6000. The Ada generation one is just known as the RTX 6000 Ada generation, and the new one that we're looking at is potentially going to be called the RTX Pro Blackwell or 6000, I can't remember. But one really massive change is that the power consumption is going to, by the speculation, apparently is going to be perhaps twice the power consumption of the previous generation. We also have twice the amount of RAM, so we've got a VRAM of 96 gigabytes. And this will be GDDR7 error correcting memory, so that is going to be ideal for the workstations. Now, because the card was actually listed online for a while, Video Cards managed to capture the actual appearance of the new Blackwell RTX Pro 6000 Blackwell GPU. They're saying it's the closest thing we've got to the Titan, and that's correct. It really is a very powerful unit, which we haven't seen the likes of for quite a while. It does seem it's probably going to be using one 12-volt 2x6 connector, but what we can see here is something that looks less like a professional card and much more like the gaming card. Typically, the old professional cards, they were so energy efficient that they didn't need a very powerful fan. They could actually work with just a single blower type fan. This one is said to have 2 fans, and it does look very much like the RTX 5090, and this close-up here shows just how similar it is to the 5090. Now, looking at the chart here, we can see that there is a massive leap in the amount of memory and a significant leap in the amount of energy required and the amount of power required. But those two seem to be the largest increases over the previous RTX 6000 Ada Lovelace generation. Now, when looking at this chart that I put together, we can see that the specs for this one make it similar in some respects to the RTX 5090. It certainly has a similar number of CUDA cores to the 5090, maybe a few more than the 5090. So perhaps using the same die as the 5090, but some of the elements that have been inactivated on the 5090 are said to be active on the Pro 6000 Blackwell. And we can also see that it has a very large memory interface. It's 512-bit. Another point they make is the clock speeds are somewhat more conservative, presumably for thermal management. But again, we're seeing this TDP, which is coming from pretty much every source discussing this, double the TDP of the previous generation. Now, if this does arrive soon, it should be arriving in March, probably at GTC, and the GTC conference, Nvidia's conference later this month. And the pricing, we would just imagine something like 8,000, 12,000, 8,000 to 12,000, particularly taking into account those tariffs. If this thing is coming from China, it's going to be quite a lot more expensive than the previous generation, which was around $6,000 to $8,000. Apple also announced the launch of what might be their most powerful PC ever, and which may contain one of the most powerful graphics cards in any desktop PC. This is the new Mac Studio, which is launching in 2 variants. And to give you some rough idea of what this thing is capable of, we can take a look at the comparison between the Mac Studio and the most recent Mac Pro. Now, the Mac Pro starts at $6,999, whilst the Mac Studio starts at $1,999. However, when we take a look at what the most powerful configurations are, we see that the Mac Studio actually has the most powerful CPU at 32 cores, compared to the 24 cores for the Mac Pro. The GPU can go up to 80 cores, whilst the Mac Pro goes up to 76 cores. And the unified memory, which is maybe the biggest difference here, goes up to 512 gigabytes. That's the memory that covers the CPU, the GPU, and also the neural engine. Now, for the Mac Pro, this is limited to 192, which was the most powerful of their setups, alongside the MacBooks as well, some of the more high-end MacBooks. And as far as the storage, even in storage terms, the Mac Studio can go up to 16 terabytes now, compared to 8 terabytes for the Mac Pro. So this is actually, and they're actually saying this, that it is the most powerful desktop that they've ever created, the new high-end Mac Studio. Now, the distinction is actually that the new configurations contain one of 2 chips, the M4 Max or the M3 Ultra, and the M3 Ultra will be the one that uses the Ultra Fusion that links 2 Max cores together to create one giant core. The M4 Max on its own is the most powerful chip, and it can go up to 40 cores for the GPU and also up to 128 gigabytes of unified memory. Now, that is a lot. That is pretty impressive on its own. However, the new M3 Ultra will go up to 80 cores for the GPU and up to 512 gigabytes for the unified memory. And they're really kind of promoting this new chip for use cases like working with really massive large language models or other large AI models. Now, when it comes to the performance of the M4 Max version, they're giving us some comparisons here, which include comparisons for photo editing using the neural filter inside of Photoshop. Now, the neural filter in Photoshop uses artificial intelligence, and they're saying with the M4 Max, it can go up to nearly 3 times faster than the 27-inch iMac with the 10-core Intel CPU. When it comes to scientific analysis, there's significantly improved performance again over the 27-inch iMac. And when it comes to video transcoding, you can see also very strong performance compared to the Intel chip. However, you can see generationally the increase in performance is actually fairly limited between the M1 Max and the M4 Max. When it comes to AI video editing, this is going to be the Topaz Video AI. You can see when it comes to this AI type of workflow, there's a consistent improvement performance over the generations all the way back to the 27-inch Intel chip. But now let's take a look at what's happening with the M3 Ultra chip. Now with the M3 Ultra chip, everything is big. Everything is pretty substantial in terms of its capacity. They say it can support up to 24 streams of 8K ProRes video playback, up to 8 displays, and of course, it has got lots of the most recent video encoding and decoding codecs. But when it comes to performance, we can see that the large language model throughput, it is able to perform up to 16.9 times faster. And this is not compared to the Intel chip. This is compared to the M1 Ultra. So that is a massive increase in performance when it comes to AI. And some of that might probably be due to the huge amount of memory that it can utilize and bring to bear in loading up these huge, massive AI models. But in other areas, there's a kind of a mixture of results. When we get to 3D rendering, it is very impressive compared to previous generations. And when it comes to video editing, you can see once again, there's not a very significant improvement in performance between the Ultra chips with the M1 Ultra, M2 Ultra, and the M3 Ultra, not showing a huge generational improvement in performance. If we look at AI video processing, there's a somewhat more significant improvement performance from the M1 Ultra generation through to the M3 Ultra generation. But as you can see there, the biggest performance leap actually is in the AI field. And I think it's going to be with people who are using these chips for AI who are going to get the most amount of improvement in performance. Now, the new Mac Studios are going to be launching today, the 12th of March, and they're also going to be available with a number of new products. I think there's 6 new products in total launching today, and that includes the MacBook Air and also the iPad Air with now the M3 chip. Now, this new iPad Air will support Apple Intelligence, and it's an important thing to bear in mind that the standard iPad, the non-Air variant, that is not going to support Apple Intelligence. So if you need Apple Intelligence for productivity, I would recommend going with the iPad Air rather than the standard entry-level iPad.